fastening our seatbelts, coming in for a landing in a city in Honduras. They jumped up with guns, sticks of dynamite, and they held us for 3 days and 3 nights. And first they released all of the women and children. And then they segregated the Americans and the people from Latin America. We were the Norte Americanos. We were in the front of the plane, and the newspapers the next morning after the hijacking reported that I was on the plane, a famous journalist. Not how famous I was, but that infuriated them because they had passed out after the hijacking sort of these next of kin forms. Put in your name and your closest relatives and what you do for a living, and I wrote journalist, but I did not write periodista. And they thought I had tried to trick them by not revealing who I was. They said, you will be the second to die. The first to die was going to be the labor negotiator for the United Fruit Company, who they really despised. But they kept the huge box of dynamite under my seat. And as I learned from the fellow next to me, who was a U.S. Army corporal, who had married a woman in Honduras, it was old dynamite, and it began to sweat. And when dynamite sweats, it actually beads up and it becomes very unstable. And really for 3 days and 3 nights, we sat in the plane. The U.S. ambassador there, who's now Thomas Negroponte, who's now #2 at the State Department, sent the word the U.S. does not pay ransom. And they wanted all of $50,000, is what the ransom was. And so we were on the plane and said, well, wait a minute, I got $4,000 for my travels, and guys had checks and traveler's checks, and what they really wanted was to acknowledge that the Honduran government had killed about 65 people they had captured. That's what they really wanted. So it went back and forth, and at several times they thought that the army in Honduras was going to storm the plane. So they cocked their weapons, and they were inexperienced. I don't know anything about weapons, and then they tried to figure out how to uncock them. And they would blow holes in the plane floor. We'd be sitting out there thinking, who do they shoot? And there were many times you'd sit there at night with one of the guys right in front of me thinking, we could jump him. Would we be able to pull it off? Is there safety on the gun? How does that work? What are we going to do? And finally, I had made a proposal to them that they, because they wouldn't pay the ransom, they were trying to figure out a way to get the money. And I saw that NBC, where I worked at the time, had sent in 2 Learjets with crews, and they had passed a note to me through the Vatican ambassador. They had cash. So I showed this to the hijackers and said, if you take me to Cuba, let everybody else go, then the planes that follow me will give you your money in Havana, where it'll be legal. So they went to the back of the plane for the first time, left us alone to discuss this issue. And then I said to my friends, this is midnight on the 3rd night, we got to get out of here. And we in fact did. A couple of people had sort of what they called the Stockholm Syndrome, and they were afraid, well, you gave your word to these people, you can't just leave. No, are you kidding? They're only going to see you. And we pulled out those emergency exit windows out of the plane. I don't know if you've ever done that. No, very few people have. And I had no idea whether, in Honduras these things were rusty screws were holding them in or what. And it was me and the labor negotiator guy from Manifort. We pulled like this. He actually ripped off his tiny finger, he pulled so hard. And I was the first out, and I just did a swan dive onto the tarmac, and it's quite a distance. And I don't know, sometimes when I get sweaty, I got cut up very badly here, and this finger's all goofed up because of that, because I hit head first. But all the Americans, but it's like Rudy Giuliani here. Yes, all the Americans but one escaped. And then the hijackers became very drunk and started doing silly things, and he just was able to get off the plane on his own that night, and that foiled the hijacking. And that was the end of quite a, I'd say that's the closest I've come to actually being killed on the job. There had been threats, but that was the one where it really was. Because their plan, it turns out, was they were going to take all the Honduran passengers in one of the planes with there's a stairway in the back, and they were going to go out the back, mix in with the Hondurans, and then blow up the plane with the Americans left inside. So we were lucky to get out. And that was 1982, and it was a world ago, and that was the one where it came closest.